In the heart of the Mediterranean, where azure waters meet rugged shores, a civilization was born that would shape the course of Western history. This is the story of ancient Greece, not the Greece of Plato or Pericles, but its very beginnings, a tale of mountains, sea, and the rise of the first great European civilizations. To understand Greece, we must first understand its geography. Look at a map of the Greek peninsula. It's a land of mountains, a spine of rock jutting into the sea, fractured into countless valleys and plains. These mountains were both a blessing and a curse. They made travel and communication difficult, isolating communities from one another. In these isolated pockets, a unique political structure emerged, the polis, or city-state. Each city-state, like Athens, Sparta, or Corinth, was fiercely independent, with its own government, its own army, and its own identity. This fragmentation would lead to centuries of rivalry and conflict, but it also fostered an incredible diversity of culture and ideas. But the mountains only tell half the story. The other half is the sea. The Aegean Sea, dotted with thousands of islands, was not a barrier but a highway. The Greeks became master sailors, their ships connecting the mainland to islands and distant colonies. The sea brought trade, wealth, and most importantly, contact with other cultures in Egypt and the Near East. It was this interplay of isolation and connection, of mountain and sea, that forged the unique character of the Greek people. Long before the classical era, however, this land was home to even older, more mysterious cultures. Our story begins on the island of Crete around 3000 BC. Here, a brilliant and peaceful civilization flourished, known to us as the Minoans, named after the legendary King Minos. The Minoans were not Greek, but their influence was profound. Their palace at Knossos is a labyrinth of rooms, corridors, and courtyards, adorned with vibrant frescoes depicting scenes of daily life, religious rituals, and their famous sport of bull leaping. These images show a sophisticated society that loved art, nature, and the sea. They developed a writing system, Linear A, which remains undeciphered to this day, adding to their mystique. The Minoans dominated the Aegean for centuries, their power based on a mighty fleet that controlled the sea lanes. But around 1450 BC, their civilization suddenly collapsed. Was it a volcanic eruption, an earthquake, or an invasion? The exact cause remains one of history's great unsolved mysteries. As the Minoan power faded, a new force was rising on the Greek mainland. They were the Mycenaeans, the first Greek-speaking people to establish a major civilization. Unlike the peaceful Minoans, the Mycenaeans were a warrior society. Their cities, like Mycenae, Tiryns, and Pylos, were heavily fortified citadels built atop hills, commanding the surrounding plains. Their kings were warrior chiefs, buried in magnificent beehive-shaped tombs with their golden masks, bronze armor, and ornate weapons. The famous Lion Gate at Mycenae, with its powerful relief of 2 lions, stands as a testament to their military might and engineering prowess. We know much more about the Mycenaeans thanks to the decipherment of their script, Linear B, an early form of Greek. Clay tablets reveal a highly organized and bureaucratic society, meticulously recording everything from chariot wheels to oil rations. The Mycenaeans were traders and raiders, their influence stretching across the Mediterranean. It is in this era, the Late Bronze Age, that the most famous story of ancient Greece is set, the Trojan War. For centuries, Homer's epic poem, the Iliad, was thought to be pure myth, a grand tale of heroes like Achilles and Hector, meddling gods, and the cunning trick of the Trojan horse. But in the 1870s, a German amateur archaeologist named Heinrich Schliemann, obsessed with Homer stories, began excavating a mound in modern-day Turkey. He uncovered the ruins of a great city, layer upon layer, that matched the description of Troy. He found evidence of a massive war and destruction around 1200 BC, the very time the Trojan War was said to have occurred. While the war was likely not the 10-year siege fought over a beautiful queen as Homer describes, archaeology suggests that a real conflict, perhaps a trade war or a series of raids, did happen. The legend of Troy became the foundational myth for the Greeks, a story of heroism and tragedy that would be told and retold for generations. But the Mycenaean world, for all its power, was also destined to fall. Around 1200 BC, a wave of destruction swept across the eastern Mediterranean. Great cities were burned, palaces were abandoned, and entire civilizations collapsed. This period is known as the Bronze Age collapse. The reasons are still debated by historians. Perhaps it was foreign invaders known as the Sea Peoples, or perhaps widespread drought, famine, and internal rebellions. Whatever the cause, the complex palace-based society of the Mycenaeans vanished. Writing was lost, trade ceased, and the population plummeted. Greece entered a period of decline and depopulation that historians call the Greek Dark Ages. For nearly 400 years, the light of civilization seemed to dim. Yet, this was not an end, but a transformation. During these so-called Dark Ages, iron replaced bronze, new pottery styles emerged, and Greek communities began to regroup. The old Mycenaean kingdoms were replaced by smaller, simpler settlements ruled by local chieftains. Epic poems like the Iliad and the Odyssey were passed down orally, preserving the memories of the heroic age and shaping a common Greek identity. It was in the darkness that the seeds of a new world were sown. As populations began to grow again, and as trade and contact with the outside world resumed, something remarkable started to happen. The Greeks adopted the Phoenician alphabet and adapted it to their own language, making literacy accessible to more people. New forms of art, politics, and thought began to stir. The shadows of the Dark Ages began to lift, revealing the dawn of a new era. The isolated city-states, the polis, began to flourish. This was the birth of archaic Greece, the period that would lay the groundwork for the explosion of creativity and intellect that was to come. The stage was set, the foundations were laid, and the world was about to witness the dawn of the classical Greek world, an age that would forever change the way we think, govern, and see ourselves. A time of brilliant philosophers, legendary warriors, and the birth of democracy. This was the classical era of ancient Greece, a period from roughly 500 to 323 BC, where human potential seemed limitless. It begins with the rise of the polis, or city-state. Hundreds of these independent communities dotted the Greek landscape, each with its own government, army, and unique identity. Among them, two giants emerged, destined for a legendary rivalry: Athens and Sparta. Athens was a bustling hub of commerce and culture, perched near the Aegean Sea. Its greatest gift to the world, democracy. In the bustling agora, or marketplace, Athenian citizens, that is, free adult men, gathered to debate, vote on laws, and shape the destiny of their city. It was a radical idea: power in the hands of the many, not the few. This freedom fueled an explosion of creativity in art, drama, and thought. Meanwhile, in the isolated valley of Laconia, Sparta forged a completely different path. From the age of 7, every Spartan boy was taken from his family and entered the agoge, a brutal military training system designed to create the perfect soldier. Life was disciplined, harsh, and entirely dedicated to the state. Spartan women, while not soldiers, were also expected to be strong and fiercely independent, raising the next generation of warriors. Their society valued strength, duty, and sacrifice above all else. These two powers, so different in their ideals, would soon face a common enemy that threatened to extinguish the Greek world altogether. From the east, the mighty Persian Empire, the largest the world had ever seen, set its sights on Greece. In 490 BC, a massive Persian force landed at Marathon, only to be miraculously defeated by a smaller, determined Athenian army. A decade later, the Persians returned with an even larger force. At the narrow pass of Thermopylae, a small band of Greeks, led by 300 Spartans under King Leonidas, made their legendary last stand, buying precious time for the rest of Greece to rally. The naval battle of Salamis and the final land battle at Plataea secured a stunning Greek victory against all odds. The Persian Wars were over, and Greece was safe. Victory ushered in an era of unprecedented confidence and prosperity, especially for Athens. This was its golden age. Under the leadership of the brilliant statesman Pericles, Athens became the cultural capital of the ancient world. This is the era that gave us the big three of philosophy: Socrates, who questioned everything and taught his students to examine their own beliefs; his student Plato, who explored ideas of justice and ideal forms; and Aristotle, Plato's student, whose work would influence science, logic, and ethics for thousands of years. The skyline of Athens itself was transformed. Pericles initiated a massive public building program on the Acropolis, the sacred hill overlooking the city. The centerpiece was the magnificent Parthenon, a temple dedicated to the goddess Athena. With its perfect proportions, intricate sculptures, and the colossal statue of Athena inside, it was a symbol of Athenian power, pride, and devotion. The arts flourished. In the great open-air theaters, audiences were captivated by the tragedies of Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides, plays that explored timeless themes of fate, justice, and human suffering. Comedies by Aristophanes, on the other hand, satirized politicians and poked fun at the absurdities of daily life. This was a society that valued intellectual curiosity and artistic expression like no other. But this golden age was not destined to last. The growing power of Athens bred fear and resentment in Sparta and its allies. The rivalry that had simmered for decades finally erupted into a devastating conflict, the Peloponnesian War. For nearly 30 years, the Greek world tore itself apart. The war was brutal, marked by plagues, betrayals, and immense suffering. In the end, Sparta emerged victorious, and Athens's golden century came to a close. The long war left all of Greece exhausted and vulnerable. The era of the dominant, independent city-state was fading, and from the north, a new power was watching and waiting. King Philip II of Macedon, a brilliant military and political strategist, reformed his army and, through a combination of diplomacy and force, brought the weakened Greek city-states under his control. But Philip's ambitions were just the beginning. After his assassination, his throne passed to his 20-year-old son, a young man who had been tutored by Aristotle himself. He was a military genius with a vision grander than anyone could have imagined. His name was Alexander. He would not just conquer Greece, he would lead its culture and armies to the very edge of the known world, forging a new empire and a new era. The classical age was ending, but the age of Alexander the Great was just about to begin. The story of Alexander the Great and the Hellenistic Age, a time when Greek culture didn't just flourish, it conquered the world. Our journey begins in the small but mighty kingdom of Macedon, where a young prince named Alexander was tutored by none other than the great philosopher Aristotle. From him, Alexander learned not just military strategy, but a deep love for Greek art, literature, and ideas. When his father, King Philip II, was assassinated, Alexander, at just 20 years old, ascended the throne. He didn't waste a moment. With a relatively small but fiercely loyal army, he set his sights on an empire that had been Greece's rival for centuries, Persia. What followed was one of the most astonishing military campaigns in history. From the shores of Anatolia to the plains of Gaugamela, Alexander's tactical genius was unmatched. He shattered the mighty Persian army, led by King Darius III, and claimed the title of King of Asia. But his ambition knew no bounds. He marched his army through treacherous deserts and over towering mountains, pushing the boundaries of the known world. His conquest led him to Egypt, where he was welcomed as a liberator and pharaoh. It was here he founded a city that would become a beacon of knowledge for centuries, Alexandria. With its legendary library and lighthouse, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, Alexandria became the intellectual capital of the Hellenistic world, a melting pot of cultures and ideas. Alexander continued east, crossing the Indus River and venturing into India. His campaign was relentless, his victories legendary. He founded cities all along his path, naming many after himself. These weren't just military outposts. They were centers for spreading Greek culture. He encouraged his soldiers to marry local women, fostering a fusion of Greek and Eastern traditions. This blend of cultures is what we call Hellenism. Suddenly, Greek became the common language across this vast new empire. Greek architectural styles, with their elegant columns and grand designs, began to appear in cities from Egypt to Afghanistan. Theaters were built, staging classic Greek tragedies and comedies for new audiences. Gymnasiums, the centers of Greek physical and intellectual education, became common. The impact on science and thought was profound. Greek philosophy, with its emphasis on logic and reason, challenged and blended with Eastern mysticism. In Alexandria, scholars like Euclid laid down the foundations of geometry in his work Elements, a book that would be used for over 2,000 years. Eratosthenes calculated the circumference of the earth with astonishing accuracy. In medicine, the teachings of Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, spread, promoting observation and a rational approach to healing. But Alexander's meteoric rise came to an abrupt end. In 323 BC, at the age of just 32, he died in Babylon, the cause still debated by historians. He left behind a vast empire with no clear heir. His kingdom was soon divided among his top generals, the Diadochi, who carved out their own dynasties, like the Ptolemies in Egypt and the Seleucids in Persia. Though his empire fractured, the cultural seeds he had planted grew into a mighty forest. The Hellenistic age lasted for nearly 3 centuries, a period of incredible innovation and cultural exchange. The art of this era was more emotional and realistic than the classical Greek style. Look at sculptures like the Venus de Milo or the Winged Victory of Samothrace. They capture a dynamic sense of movement and human feeling that was revolutionary. The legacy of Alexander and the Hellenistic age echoes through to our modern world. The concept of a cosmopolitan city, where people from all backgrounds live and trade ideas, began with cities like Alexandria. The foundations of Western science, mathematics, and philosophy were solidified and spread during this time. The Greek language gave us the New Testament and countless scientific and medical terms we still use today. Even our political vocabulary is filled with Greek words like democracy, politics, and diplomacy. The Romans, who eventually conquered the Hellenistic kingdoms, were themselves deeply influenced by Greek culture. They admired Greek art, literature, and philosophy, and through the vast Roman Empire, they passed this inheritance on to Western Europe. So, when we talk about the foundations of Western civilization, we are, in many ways, talking about the legacy of ancient Greece. A legacy carried on the shoulders of a young king who dared to conquer the world and, in doing so, united it through culture. From the Parthenon in Athens to the ruins of cities in modern-day Turkey, Iran, and Egypt, the footprint of the Greeks is everywhere. It's in our buildings, our governments, our books, and our way of thinking. Alexander the Great's conquest was not just one of land, but of the mind. And it's a conquest whose influence has never truly ended. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through history. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories from our incredible past. See you next time.